This is the final reflection for ELPA 6020, Module 7. As I think back over all of our previous modules and our work this semester, one of the standout categories for me that seems to have come up over and over is the idea of relationships. First, think back to one of the first assignments in the syllabus, which was about the post-secondary profile. I looked at Gutman Community College in New York, one of the most innovative and newest community colleges in the country. So much is going right at Gutman, but as you read more and more about them, you realize they have had a couple of conflicts because they've had some increasing faculty resistance. The leadership at the college, even though it is a small group, has gotten out ahead of the faculty, and in some cases they've been leading in a place where the faculty are not following. Turn to the human resources management profile and our conversation that we had with Brian Evans here at Chattanooga State. He emphasized over and over and over trying to create a culture of transparency and a culture of fairness. And he said right out loud that he feels that the faculty are really the people in charge of the institution. I imagine if we surveyed our faculty that they would not agree with that. They don't maybe feel that way, but it was interesting to have our executive director of HR talk about that. Again, those relationships being critical with our faculty and creating that correct culture to foster those relationships. And then the organizational culture profile assignment. Several areas of where work is needed. One being the idea of workforce alignment versus the traditional exploratory or exploration role of the college. You know, why are we here? Are we here to meet workforce needs? Are we here to help students find their passions? And why do those two things have to disagree? That is a critical conversation for our college, but it's not one that we can have if we're going to be partisan about it. It's going to have to be a conversation that takes place in a climate of trust. How specialized should we be? How much should we be focusing students into career tracks? And this relates to what we just discussed. But that's an important question. Then how do we make sure that advising really works? We've had a real, as we've begun to rethink advising, lots of different opinions from our faculty members about how that ought to work, even different opinions from our deans. And more conversation is needed. This is another area where we have real work to do, but we can't really do the work without the correct pre-existing and strong relationships across the campus. And then in the final project, we talked about mentoring. We know it works, but the match matters a lot. The match has got to be correct. And in order to get a good match, you have to really know the mentors and the mentees. You got to have some kind of pre-existing relationship so you know how to match people correctly. So how does it all come together? It really is about relationships. It's about getting beyond the process, about not worrying so much about how things work for 10,000 students, but how they work for each individual student. The faculty are critical. We don't know that many in student affairs. And creating that culture of transparency, because transparency creates trust. Trust is the prerequisite for any relationship.